3 rings for elven kings under the stars. 7 rings for the dwarf lords in their halls of stone. 9 rings for mortal men doomed to die. 1 ring for the Dark Lord on his dark throne in the land of Mordor where the shadows lie. 1 ring to rule them all. 1 ring to find them. 1 ring to bring them all, and in the darkness bind them in the land of Mordor where the shadows lie. If all you had to go on was one comically ill-conceived money sink of a show from the latest Netflix wannabe, you might assume that mastering Rings of Power is difficult. Well, that's simply not the case. Come join me as I show you the secrets of forging your own magical rings to make you the ruler of your next Pathfinder 1E campaign, as well as break down a few of my favorite magical rings that you should consider blinging yourself out with. Let's begin at the beginning, with the forging of your rings. If you would like to forge magical rings, you need the Forge Ring feat. This requires you to be a spellcaster of 7th level. Creating a ring takes 1 day per 1,000 gold pieces of its base price. You can mend broken rings for 1/2 the cost in raw materials to create that ring. Broken rings and broken magical items in general are a cool loot item that DMs should definitely consider giving their players. It gives them an item and a project all in one go, especially if you want to give them something that's powerful or maybe they're not quite ready for, and it'll swing the balance of the campaign a little bit. The DC to craft a ring is 5 plus the caster level of the ring. Forging rings can be done with a number of different skill checks. Spellcraft would be the most common, and it's probably your best bet. However, if you've invested in another craft or profession, such as craft jewelry or profession goldsmithing, both of those are applicable. Now, let's talk about some rings that you should consider creating. First, the Ring of Animal Friendship. On command, you can affect an animal as if you had cast Charm Animal on it. The requirements to create a Ring of Animal Friendship are the Forge Ring feat and the spell Charm Animal. This ring costs 1,800 gold pieces, or 5,400 gold pieces to craft. The craft DC is 8, or DC 13 if you lack the required spell. Next, the Ring of Arcane Mastery. If you have the Arcane Pool class feature, i.e. if you're a magus, you can store up to 4 points from your pool in the ring. You can spend these points as if they were your own to power your own abilities, or in a couple of different ways. You can spend 1 point as a free action to get a +2 bonus to concentration for the next 1 round. Alternatively, as a standard action, you could spend 1 point to use the Magus Pool Strike Arcana. Finally, as an immediate action, you can spend up to 4 points for the Magus Reflection Arcana. Creating a Ring of Arcane Mastery requires the Forge Ring feat, as well as Imbue with Spell-like ability and Spell Turning. The cost is 20,000 gold pieces or 10,000 gold pieces to craft. The craft DC is 16, or 21 if you're missing one of the spell requirements, or 26 if you're missing both required spells. Next we have the Ring of Arcane Signet. With this ring, as a standard action, you can embed a personal glyph, sigil, or brand onto an object as if using Arcane Mark. This mark is permanent unless it's removed by either Dispel or Erase, or some higher level effect. Creating a Ring of Arcane Signet requires the Forge Ring feat, as well as the Arcane Mark spell. This ring will cost 1,000 gold pieces, or 500 gold pieces to craft. The craft DC is 13, or 18 if you're missing the required spell. Next, we have the Ring of Continuation. If you cast a spell with a range of personal and a duration of 10 minutes or more per level, the spell remains in effect for 24 hours. Casting a new spell with a range of personal does not eliminate the old one. Creating this ring requires the Forge Ring feat, as well as the Pneumatic Enhancer spell. A Ring of Continuation will cost 56,000 gold pieces, or 28,000 to craft. The craft DC is 12, or 17 if you're missing the required spell. Next, we have the Ring of Craft Magic. With this ring, you can make a craft check instead of a spellcraft check to identify a magic item that could have been created with that skill. You may also expend a spell slot, or prepared spell, to get a bonus equal to the level of that spell on your next craft or profession check. Creating a Ring of Craft Magic requires the Craft Ring feat and the Obsession racial trait. This is a gnome racial trait. The price of this ring is 12,000 gold pieces or 6,000 gold pieces to craft, and it has a craft DC of 8. The thing I like about the Ring of Craft Magic is it has such a distinct story because of its requirements. You have to be a gnome to make it, and it's a very gnomey feeling item. It's a really on-brand thing to have for your next gnomish adventure. Next, the Ring of Curing. Whenever you cast a spell of the Conjuration Healing Subschool, all level-dependent variables have their maximum increased by 2. Let me give you an example. If you cast Cure Light Wounds and you were caster level 7, your Cure spell would heal 1d8 plus 7 points of damage instead of 1d8 plus 5. The requirements for creating this ring are the Forge Ring feat, the Heightened Spell feat, and the Consecrate spell. The price is 10,000 gold pieces, or 5,000 gold pieces to craft. The craft DC is 13, or 18 if you are missing the required spell. Next up, the always useful Ring of Evasion. This ring allows you to avoid damage as if you had the Evasion class feature. Creating a Ring of Evasion requires the Forge Ring feat and the Jump spell. A Ring of Evasion will cost 25,000 gold pieces, or 12,500 gold pieces to craft. The craft DC is 12, or 17 if you're missing the required spell. A very useful and relatively cheap ring that any frontline fighter would be happy to have is the Ring of Foe Focus. You can, at will, designate one foe you see as a particularly dangerous enemy. This grants you a +2 bonus to AC and saves against that foe. The requirements to forge this ring are the Forge Ring feat and the Shield spell. The price is 10,000 gold pieces, or 5,000 gold pieces to craft. The craft DC is 10, or 15 if you're missing the required spell. Now let's talk about a ring that any arcane spellcaster would be happy to have, the Ring of Force Shield. This ring allows you to wield a shield-sized wall of force as if it was a heavy steel shield. This gives you a +2 deflection bonus to your AC, with no armor check penalty or arcane spell failure chance. The requirements to forge this ring are, as always, the Forge Ring feat and the spell Wall of Force. The price is 8,500 gold pieces, or 4,250 gold pieces to craft. The craft DC is 14, or 19 if you are missing the required spell. Next up, because it had to be in here, the Ring of Invisibility. While wearing this ring, you gain the benefits of the invisibility spell, but not greater invisibility the glamour will drop if you attack. The requirements to create a Ring of Invisibility are the Forge Ring feat and the invisibility spell. A ring of this kind will cost 20,000 gold pieces, or 10,000 gold pieces to craft. The DC to create the ring is DC 8, or 13 if you're missing the invisibility spell. Next up we have the Ring of Key Mastery. You can store up to 2 points from your key pool in this ring. You can use those key points normally, or you can keep them in the ring to create some passive bonuses for yourself. If you have 1 point stored in the ring, you get a +2 bonus to your combat maneuver defense versus grappled, reposition, or trip attempts. If you have 2 points of key stored in the ring, you can reduce the cost of any key ability or ninjutsu by 1 to a minimum of 1. The requirements to create this ring are the Forge Ring Feat, the Key Leech spell, and the Key class feature. The price to create this ring is 10,000 gold pieces, or 3,450 gold pieces to craft. The craft DC is 10 or 15 if you're missing the required spell. This is another ring that has a really strong backstory implied about it. Whoever makes the Ring of Key Mastery, they have to have at least some levels in Monk. So I could easily see this as an heirloom of a monk monastery handed down from generation to generation, and it would be a cool item for any monk character to receive, find, or go on a quest to recover. Next up, we have the ever-useful Ring of Mind Shielding. When you are wearing this ring, you are immune to detect thoughts, discern lies, and any attempt to detect your alignment through magical means. The requirements are the Forge Ring Feat and the non-detect spell. A Ring of Mind Shielding will cost 8,000 gold pieces or 4,000 gold pieces to craft. That craft DC is 8 or 13 if you are missing the required spell. Now let's move on to a staple ring that any adventurer, no matter what class, will have at least some use for. The Ring of Protection. This ring grants a magical deflection bonus from 1 to 5 based on the level of the ring. The requirements to create a Ring of Protection are Forge Ring, Shield of Faith, and you must be at least 3 times the level of the ring you're trying to forge. So, to create a Ring of Protection with a +5 bonus, it requires a caster level of 15 to craft. A Ring of Protection with a +1 bonus will cost 2,000 gold pieces, or 1,000 gold pieces to craft. A Ring of Protection +2 requires 8,000 gold pieces, or 4,000 gold pieces to craft. A Ring of Protection +3 costs 18,000 gold pieces, or 9,000 gold pieces to craft. A Ring of Protection +4 costs 32,000 gold pieces, or 16,000 gold pieces to craft. Finally, that Ring of Protection +5 costs 50,000 gold pieces, or 25,000 gold pieces to craft. The craft DC for any Ring of Protection is DC 10 or DC 15 if you're missing the required spell. Now let's move on to the Ring of Revelation. This ring grants you the use of a specific oracle revelation. If you're an oracle, that is, non-oracles gain no benefit from this ring, and the ring can't be tricked with the Use Magical Device skill. You must be of a level that would allow you to use this revelation if you took it. If the revelation contained in the ring has a number of uses per day and you already have this revelation, equipping the ring will grant you an additional use of that ability per day. The requirement to create this ring is the Forge Ring Feat, as well as the Oracle Revelation that is contained within the ring. Rings of Revelation come in a number of levels, starting with Lesser. This covers revelations that can be gained between levels 1 and 6. They cost 10,000 gold pieces or 5,000 gold pieces to create. Greater Rings of Revelation cover revelations between levels 7 and 10. A ring of this level will cost 16,000 gold pieces or 8,000 gold pieces to craft. Finally, the superior Ring of Revelation covers revelations from 11th level on up. They cost 24,000 gold pieces or 12,000 gold pieces to craft. The craft DC for a Ring of Revelation is 16. Much like the other rings that require class features to create, this ring inherently has a fairly strong story attached to it. It has to be made by an oracle in a specific type of tradition or one who is deeply invested in a specific kind of mystery. So it's definitely an important NPC creating this ring. Now let's move on to the Ring of Sacred Mistletoe. If you have this ring equipped, you gain a +2 bonus on Handle Animal and Knowledge Nature checks, as well as Wild Empathy checks. If you have the Woodland Stride class feature, you can move through magically created or manipulated plants as if they were non-magical. The Entangle spell is a good example. Finally, you can cast Shillelagh 1 time per day. The requirements to create a Ring of Sacred Mistletoe are Forge Ring, the Pass Without Trace spell, and the Shillelagh spell. This ring will cost 6,000 gold pieces, or 3,000 gold pieces to craft. The craft DC of a Ring of Sacred Mistletoe is a DC 6. Next we have the Ring of Spell Knowledge. If you're a spontaneous caster, you can add a spell known to the ring and through it to your spell list. You can do this by succeeding at a DC 20 spellcraft check after encountering the spell, either having seen it cast, coming across a scroll, or seeing it in a spellbook. The ring comes in 4 different levels. The levels correspond to the highest level of spell that the ring can learn. For spells not on the caster's spell list, those spells are treated as 1 level higher. Let me give you an example. If you're a bard using a level 4 ring, you could add Fireball, a level 3rd spell, to your list of spells known as a 4th level spell. The requirements to create a Ring of Spell Knowledge are the Forge Ring feat, and you must be able to cast spells of the level that the ring is meant to contain. Like always, more powerful rings require more resources to create, or acquire. A level 1 Ring of Spell Knowledge costs 1,500 gold pieces, or 750 gold pieces to craft. A level 2 Ring of Spell Knowledge costs 6,000 gold pieces, or 3,000 gold pieces to craft. A Ring of Spell Knowledge level 3 costs 13,500 gold pieces, or 6,750 gold pieces to craft. Finally, the level 4 version of the ring costs 24,000 gold pieces, or 12,000 gold pieces to craft. Creating a Ring of Spell Knowledge is a DC 12. Next we have the Ring of Strength Sapping. 1 time per day as a swift action after successfully hitting a living creature with an unarmed attack. You can inflict 1d4 points of strength damage. A DC 20 fort save negates this effect. If strength damage is taken, you get a +2 enhancement bonus. Personally, I'd have made it a profane bonus, but not my call, to your strength modifier for 1 minute. The requirements to create a Ring of Strength Sapping are the Forge Ring feat, the Ray of Enfeeblement spell, and the Bull's Strength spell. The cost to create this ring is 8,000 gold pieces, or 4,000 gold pieces to craft. The cost of this ring is 8,000 gold pieces, or 4,000 gold pieces to craft. The craft DC is 12, or 17 if you're missing one of the spells, or 22 if you're missing both of the spells. Another very useful ring is the Ring of Sustenance. While wearing the ring, you do not need to eat, and you only need to sleep for 2 hours per night. Creating a Ring of Sustenance requires the Forge Ring feat and the Create Food and Water spell. This ring costs 2,500 gold pieces or 1,250 gold pieces to craft. The craft DC is 10 or 15 if you are missing the required spell. Now onto the Ring of Wizardry. Your arcane spells per day are doubled for one of your spell levels. The rings come in levels 1, 2, 3, and 4. Bonus spells added by your casting modifier are unaffected by the ring's ability. The requirement for creating a Ring of Wizardry is the Forge Ring feat and the Limited Wish spell. A level 1 Ring of Wizardry costs 20,000 gold pieces or 10,000 gold pieces to craft. A Ring of Wizardry Type 2 costs 40,000 gold pieces or 20,000 to craft. A Ring of Wizardry Level 3 costs 70,000 gold pieces or 35,000 gold pieces to craft. Finally, a Level 4 Ring of Wizardry costs 100,000 gold pieces or a mere 50,000 gold pieces if you want to make one yourself. The DC to create a Ring of Wizardry is 16 or 21 if you're missing the required spell. The last ring on my list is the Scholar's Ring. You gain a complete understanding of any written or spoken language while wearing this ring as if you were under the effects of the Comprehend Languages spell. You also get a +5 competency bonus to knowledge history checks. Finally, one time every 5 days, you can cast the Legend Lore spell to get information about a topic you've been studying for at least 1 week. The requirements to create a Scholar's Ring are the Forge Ring feat, the Comprehend Languages spell, and the Legend Lore spell. This ring will cost 8,700 gold pieces, or 4,350 gold pieces to craft. The DC is 10, or 15 if you're missing one of the spell requirements, or 20 if you're missing both spell requirements. The last item I'd like to talk to you about is the Hand of Glory. If you have a Hand of Glory, you can cast Invisibility and Light 1 time per day, but that's not really relevant. What is relevant is the fact that you can put a ring onto the hand and gain that ring's effect while you wear the hand. That's right, it's an extra ring slot that doesn't count against your total of 2 ring slots that you can have. You are, however, giving up your next slot. The requirements to create a Hand of Glory are the Craft Wondrous Item feat, the Animate Dead spell, the See Invisibility spell, and the Daylight spell. The cost of a Hand of Glory is 8,000 gold pieces, or 4,000 gold pieces to craft. The DC is 10, or 15 if you're missing one of the required spells, 20 if you're missing 2 of them, and a DC 25 if you're missing all 3 spells. Before I end the video, I would like to leave you with some inspiration about rings. Obviously, Lord of the Rings is at the very top of that inspiration list. The rings created by Celebrimbor are incredibly iconic, definitive magical items. The story of their creation is fairly interesting. I highly recommend you read the Silmarillion, not just because it gives you way more backstory on how Middle-earth was formed, but there are a lot of interesting side stories only touched on in the text of Lord of the Rings. Also, how the rings affect the War of the Ring is incredibly interesting. Another great source for ring inspiration is the Wheel of Time book series. The world of the Wheel of Time is brimming with interesting magical objects, or objects of power as they're sometimes called. They fall into a couple of different categories. One of the major ones are the Angreal. These can really be anything, including rings, and they enhance the magical abilities of a channeler. But I think the more interesting category are the Tur Angreal. These are magical items that use the one power, the source of all magic in the Wheel of Time setting. Essentially what a Tur Angreal is a weave, or spell, cemented into an object. And there are a number of magical rings that the heroes and villains of the Wheel of Time use and abuse throughout the course of events. Finally, I have to recommend Dark Souls. The grim darkness of the Souls universe is filled with interesting magical rings, such as the memed to death Ring of Favor and Protection. Also, Dark Souls from time to time will connect its rings with specific characters, like the Band of Artorias, and occasionally imply that the rings have sinister alternate uses, like the Northern and Southern Ritual bands from Dark Souls 2. These rings were created by the sinister scholar Lord Aldia, who had some very bad intentions for everyone he gave his gifts to. Thank you for watching D6 Damage. If you'd like to support my work outside of YouTube, check out Sorcerous. This dark fantasy mystery RPG follows an all-mage party as they attempt to unravel a sinister conspiracy that threatens the city they call home. Follow the link in the description to watch the trailer on Steam. And if you'd like to take your game further, join the D6 Damage Discord, where we have more discussions about all aspects of Pathfinder 1E, including game mastering, character builds, strategy, RP, and more.